Okay, I am recording this video out of, because I think it needs to be shared and I want to get interpretation for um, what I believe could be the first, well, I was going to say a vision. I think I might have had a bit of a vision waking up once before, but that was about a year ago as I was waking up. And I couldn't be sure that it was, but this one is definitely what I believe to have been a vision. I was it was about 4:44ish in the morning. I'm assuming that because I woke up shortly after that, and it looked at the clock shortly after that, and based off about how long it had been, I do believe it was likely around that time because that's a number that God shows me often, is 4:44 or 44. I believe myself to have been awake because I do believe, other than maybe a second afterwards, that the time period between me experiencing this and then going and doing awake things, they were, it was straight through. If I was in fact asleep, I had lucidity unlike you would ever have in a dream, even if you knew that you were lucid dreaming. Because even if you know that you're lucid dreaming, certain things might make sense. Like you might be in Egypt or something, and you realize you're dreaming, but you don't question why you're in Egypt, or that type of thing. But it would be a similar lucidity to, as if you were having, what are those called? Not a night terror, a sleep paralysis, that type of thing. If you've ever experienced anything like that, then you understand what I'm talking about. But I'll show you right here. Let me switch my camera around. Oh, I can't do that. But right here, over that window, remember that window, because it's going to be important here in just a second. So, I'm looking for interpretation for those who have the gift to interpret, or discernment, rather. This was about 2 days ago. In the morning, I opened my eyes. I was looking over at that window because it was one of the only sources of light, street light, coming in from the outside. And I saw what appeared to be a little stick figure, black, going across the window. And I'm like, what the heck? And then my vision zoomed in a little bit, and I was able to see clearly. It was a silhouette of a woman with a black ponytail, and she started bounding across the window. But she was moving slowly, but her feet were running. And then she started climbing what I believe I remember to have been an invisible cliff. She started climbing up the window, not the side of the window, but she had went over a little bit and was climbing up, and I could tell that she was like rock climbing. And after I noticed that, the vision that was played out on that window, that disappeared. The woman disappeared in a faint, almost translucent, as if looking at a picture with the opacity turned down to like 30%. So it was a faint image of like rolling green hills, pasture land, and a red, what I believed and understood at the time to be like a red heifer, came running into view, from the side of the screen, because it was like part of the window was a screen of sorts. Came bounding in the frame and up onto the hill that was closest to me. I wasn't in the vision. I was watching it play out on the window, and I thought, oh, that's a red heifer. It was the exact same color as the ones that are in Israel, and when it got up, it kind of turned to the side a little bit, and it had the body composition of a bull, like a heavier front load and toned, I couldn't see any horns, because it was already kind of see-through, and maybe the horns were the same color as, the color behind it, behind the window, because it was pretty dark. But, and then as I looked at this bull, it became a fat, it didn't come closer, but the image of it moved to what would be the foreground of what the area that I was looking at. So it was easier to see, and it became a white, plump sheep. I was like, what the heck? I'm like, I'm actually seeing a vision. I couldn't believe it, because I was so lucid. And then that faded away, and I started talking. I might be getting the details a little bit mixed up as far as the order, but I started talking to God, or there was just some silence, and I heard something in what I'm about to explain it, and then I started talking to God. But I heard like a ringing in my ears, and then like a cloudy, like the ringing you might hear after a flashbang in a video game, and then the concussed little swimming of your head that you might hear with a concussion grenade in a video game. And I heard like a mumbling or something like that, and I was like, whoa, like I could tell like something was about to happen. It came in and it faded in out of silence, this noise, and then it went away, and there was silence again. And I was like, what is it? And I thought I heard my name as it faded back in and like grumbled or something like that. And then I was like, what? And I might have said what the first two times after each time I heard this. And then it faded back in, ears ringing, and then this, and then I heard like a whisper, like as if this thing was tuning into my frequency, and its whisper was like punching through this cloud of, background noise that was coming. And I heard it say, seriously, like seriously. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but I felt it to be God talking to me in that moment. And I understand that people say, who have heard God, they say, oh, he has a sense of humor. So I kind of think afterwards that him saying seriously is like, hey, are you not listening? I'm trying to get through to you. Which I understand God could immediately get through, but I guess he was wanting me to learn to pay attention or whatever. I don't know what. I'll see what your interpretation is once you hear this out. But I've been, for a little bit of context, okay, reverse. After it said seriously, it went silent again, I do believe. And for a little bit of context, I've been praying pretty fervently to hear the Lord's voice over the last 2 years and haven't heard it. I've been thinking about this many, many times, haven't had visions on the thing, so this is definitely unique. And for some context, I did end up, I'm not saying this for my own glory, but I'm saying so that you understand and can be encouraged to do so yourself within medical supervision, if you choose to do the same. I actually fasted that day to hear his voice, amongst other things. But I said, I found myself, I don't know if I said it out loud or I yelled it in my head, because these sounds, I was hearing them loud and clearly in my head, but it's almost like I wasn't hearing them with my actual ears. I was just experiencing them like almost like I was listening to earbuds. And I said, I thought to test the spirit, but I didn't have enough wherewithal because I was so, like, panicked to ask, say Jesus is Lord type of thing. But I said, what is your name, spirit? And I heard through this, it started ringing and like a shaking. I forgot that when the sound would come on, it was almost like a little shuddering of my vision, Like there was intensity in the room. And I said, I heard this ringing, the clouded, and this whisper punched through and say, I am. And I'm like, I immediately knew Old Testament, that's, who should I say sent me? I am that I am, that is, and then in the New Testament, Jesus before Abraham, verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am, or something like that. So I knew it was God. And I said, what? And my heart started pounding, and I started like, I had been praying for this, but when it actually happens, I had to catch my breath. I couldn't really even think. And it said, I am. And I was like, I collected myself for a second, and the voice went away, and I was afraid to lose it. And I said, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. Your servant is listening. And I think I may have heard the sound come back, and then I thought, and I'm like, what is your name? I mean, what is the name of your son? That ringing and everything came back, and it said, Jesus Christ. And I'm like, who or what? And it said, Jesus Christ. Like he was willing to be patient with me. And then I sought the voice after that, and I tried to ask questions and things like that, but I heard nothing. I turned over, did a little bit of praising, and I wasn't able to reconnect or hear the voice again. And by the time I looked at the clock, it was like, I think it was like 4:57 or something like that. But that's the end of what I know. Please give me your interpretation on that. I'm about to post another a dream that I had the very next day, which is this morning. I'd really like to know your discernment on what it is that vision meant. I believe it might have been God telling me that I'm on the right track now, that I have been studiously making more efforts and seeking Him deeper. I'm not sure. I don't know what this might have to do with the end times. I know the red heifer is historically I would imagine it's a symbol of cleanness because it had to do with purifying in the temple, the ashes of the red heifer. And I'm aware of the new news of, they burned this heifer that they said was a practice run, but everyone and their dog believes it was actually, and people that were actually there say they're understanding that it was indeed a perfect red heifer. I am of the opinion that it was indeed a perfect red heifer. So I'm aware of that right now. So in light of that, I'd like to know what you think. Thank you. Bye-bye.